Welcome to Suri Cheating Story, where we share true stories of betrayal in love. Our channel brings heartfelt, real-life experiences from those who have endured the pain of infidelity. Whether you're facing challenges in your own relationship or seeking to better understand the complexities of love and trust, Suri Cheating Story is the place for you. Subscribe now to explore the emotional depths in the path to healing with us. I thought she was smarter than this, but I was wrong. My voice remained calm as I watched Brenda's face tighten, the tension building in the room. She raised her voice, clearly frustrated. "Good, did you hear what I said?" I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Yes, dear, you have a date with a man this Friday, and you don't mind?" Her surprise was impossible to miss. Her eyes widened as she processed my response. "Of course, I mind," I said, my voice still steady. "But what choice do I have? As you've noticed, I don't control you. You're your own person. Your voice and expression tell me that you're determined to see this through. So what choice do I have?" Brenda stared at me for a moment, her gaze intense and unyielding. "I'll be back," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of defiance. "Don't let your fragile male ego get in the way. I love you and I'll make amends. You'll see." I was quiet for a beat, letting her words hang in the air. "So you know it's wrong then?" I asked, keeping my tone even, not wanting to escalate things. She lowered her eyes, refusing to answer. That was all the answer I needed. It was a clear hint that she didn't want to face the reality of what was happening. I let the moment linger. Consciousness. Her guilt wasn't visible, but I knew it was still there, hidden deep inside her. The tension hung heavy in the air as I spoke, my words cutting through the silence. "You know, and I know that they won't understand this," I said, my voice steady. "You know you're doing something wrong. You just admitted it." "What?" she asked, her voice faltering. "When? Why did you say you would make amends in front of me?" "If it was lunch with friends, you wouldn't have to make amends," I continued, my eyes locked onto hers. "If you were just going to get a haircut, you wouldn't feel the need to explain it to me. You only said it because you know you're doing something wrong. You know it makes you a bad person." Uncertainty crept into her voice. But you said I could do it." "No," I said, cutting her off. "I never said that, and I never will. All I admitted was that I can't stop you, but I absolutely do not approve of it, not in any way." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I would like you to stay with me, or go on a date with me. We can go to the same restaurant, even to the same dance club. But it's not about the food or the dancing, is it? It's about the company you prefer, and that company is not me." She sat there silent, her gaze falling to the floor. "You want to hear his name, am I right?" I asked, my voice quieter now but still firm. She lowered her head even further, and for a moment the room was silent. The air felt thick with the weight of her hesitation. "By the way, what's his name?" I pressed, unable to hold back any longer. "It doesn't matter," she whispered, barely audible. "Let's talk about it," I replied, my voice filled with a mix of sadness and frustration. "I assume you're not going to argue about that," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Whether you like the name, Mr. Whatever, doesn't matter. Just know this. I don't want you going out with Mr. Friday. Your date with him will have consequences." "What consequences?" she asked, clearly not understanding the depth of what I was saying. I looked at her, my eyes not leaving hers. "You're not just beautiful, you're also intelligent. I constantly tell you these two things, but apparently, you think I say it only because I have to. That's not the case. I say it because I mean it." I let the words sink in for a moment, then continued. "I'm giving you, an intelligent woman, the responsibility of dealing with the consequences of your Friday date with Mr. Whoever." Her expression changed slightly, but there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. "You're bluffing. You love me," she said, her voice soft but confident. I stood there, my gaze unwavering. "Love doesn't mean accepting betrayal," I replied, my voice cold, though the hurt was still there, buried under the surface. "Love means setting boundaries, making choices that protect not only your own heart, but the relationship you built. I don't want you to go out with him, but if you do, just understand there will be consequences, and they won't be easy to face." The tension in the room thickened, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She knew deep down that I was right, but the question remained. Would she choose her marriage or give in to something else? You always give me what I want, she said, a mix of defiance and determination in her voice. Well, I want this. And as I've already said, I'll be back, and we'll love each other and rebuild together. I looked at her, holding my ground. I can't stop you from doing stupid things, but you've been warned. You're on your own. With that, I stood up, grabbed my keys, and left before she could say anything else. The weight of the conversation hung in the air, but I had made my decision. The temperature in the apartment had been relatively cool all week. On Thursday, I packed my things and moved into the guest room. "What are you doing, Rick?" she called out, pausing with a stack of clothes in her hands. I looked at her as if she were a child, a 2-year-old even. "It seems I overestimated your intelligence," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "What does it look like? Are you moving out?" "Yes," I replied calmly. "My wife wants to date other men. Do you think I'm going to sleep in the same room with a cheating wife?" "Dream on." Her voice cracked, sounding like that of a broken woman, but I had no sympathy left. "Rick, please," she pleaded, "don't do this." I didn't answer. I couldn't answer. This wasn't about saving her anymore. It was about saving myself, and no amount of pleading would change that. "You're such a silly boy," she taunted, her voice laced with bitterness. "Throwing a tantrum like your little figure is going to lose shape." I didn't say a word. I simply took the stack of clothes, hung them in the spare closet, and returned to the living room. I could hear her sneer behind me as I walked away. "So now you're trying to punish the bigger evil witch with silence," she mocked. "You see how pathetic you are?" "Consequences," I replied, my voice calm but firm. She was silent for a moment, but I could feel her anger simmering beneath the surface. She wouldn't be able to say she wasn't warned. This was her choice. I had made mine. On Friday morning, I left early, determined to focus on myself for once. I went to a high-end salon where I treated myself to a professional modern haircut. The stylist shaved me meticulously with a sharp razor, and I even had my nails done, something I hadn't bothered with before. Afterward, I walked into the men's clothing store next door. I bought a casual yet elegant shirt, trousers, and a blazer. I considered getting new shoes, but then I remembered. New footwear and dancing didn't go together, so I passed on that. On the way back home, I stopped by a car wash and requested a thorough cleaning for my SUV. It had no idea what hit it, but I was ready for a new chapter. Back home, I took a breath, feeling the weight of the changes I was making. When I walked inside, I felt like I was looking at my life through fresh eyes, ready to move forward no matter where it took me. I heard Brenda had arrived and I took a deep breath. I headed downstairs, trying to maintain my composure. Half an hour later, she descended into the living room in a new dress I had never seen before. It was a few inches above the knee, revealing a generous amount of cleavage. She stopped on the last step, looking at me as if she expected a compliment. When I remained silent, she glanced at me again, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Damn it, you look fabulous. Where are you going?" I asked, my tone flat, betraying none of the emotion that churned inside me. What did you think?" she snapped back, her voice dripping with a mocking, condescending tone. "What is a clueless husband supposed to do? Just sit at home, playing with his little kitty, waiting for his Royal Highness to make her grand appearance?" I could hear the sarcasm in her voice, but I wasn't playing into her game. Not anymore. My silence lingered between us, but she didn't back down. The air was thick with tension, and yet all I could feel was the exhaustion of having fought for too long. There was no turning back now. We were both aware that I was still married, and we respected that, at least in the beginning. So we spent a long, not too rushed evening, sipping wine, letting our gazes playfully flirt with each other as we engaged in conversation. There was a comfortable tension between us, the kind that comes when two people know there's a fine line they're both dancing on, but they don't mind crossing it, even if just a little. Brenda, as I've mentioned before, was beautiful and passionate. But with passion comes a flip side, jealousy, and I could feel the undertone of it as we talked. As the evening went on, I couldn't help but notice that Brenda was clearly uneasy, especially when I casually mentioned that I would be dancing with Charmaine later on. Charmaine, of course, was not just any woman. She was the kind of woman who could make anyone second-guess their own self-control. I knew that the thought of me dancing with Charmaine, the way we moved together, our chemistry, would drive Brenda crazy. The mere idea of it could disrupt the wonderful night she had been hoping for, especially as she played the role of the new and eager woman in my life. It was a game, and I was fully aware of the power I had to drive her wild with jealousy. But as I said, we were still playing by the rules. We were still dancing around the truth, pretending as though we could both keep a straight face. Later that night, when I dropped Charmaine off at her apartment, she did me a favor. She leaned in close, applying a drop of her perfume to my shirt collar and smudging her freshly painted lips on the collar, neck, and cheek of my shirt. The kiss on the cheek was light, but the message was clear. She was marking her territory, or at least reminding me of what was on the line. "Go and get her, Tiger," Charmaine teased, her voice a mixture of playful affection and challenge. We chuckled, and I watched as she disappeared into her apartment. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions. I wasn't sure whether I was playing the game or letting it play me, but the night was still young and I had decisions to make. I got into my SUV and headed home, trying to shake off the lingering tension from the evening. It wasn't long before I pulled up to the house, the familiar sight of it making me feel strangely detached. I walked inside, my mind racing with the events of the evening, but when I entered the big chill, I was immediately met with Brenda's piercing gaze. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded. I shrugged, not even looking her in the eye. "Not your business," I replied, my voice cold. It was a lie, but it felt necessary. Her eyes narrowed as she studied me, but I could see the way her anger simmered just beneath the surface. She was playing her part well, the wronged wife, the one who had been left behind while I went off and lived my life. But as I stood there watching her, I realized that I too had been playing a part. I was stuck in this cycle, and it was becoming clearer to me with each passing day that the only way out was to confront the truth, even if it meant destroying everything I thought I had built. Stunned, she stared at me, disbelief written all over her face. "What? What did you say?" And again, I couldn't help but think that I had overestimated her intelligence. I sighed, keeping my composure. "Take a second. It's not rocket science. You're trying to reject me, push me into this nonsense, dressing up for some anonymous jerk, wearing clothes you've never worn for me, and you're surprised when I follow your example?" Her silence lingered, and I pressed on. "You've redefined the terms of our marriage despite my objections, and I just did the same thing you did. The only difference is that I was honest enough to tell you who I went with. For some strange reason, you're too embarrassed to name your partners." Her face flushed red, and I could see the frustration rising in her. "So, Miss Very Smart, what's your problem?" I challenged, my words sharp and deliberate. Brenda's sails deflated before my eyes. The tough facade she'd been holding up began to crumble, and I saw her vulnerability for the first time in a long while. 2 tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't offer her a moment to catch her breath. I just kept going. "So let me guess," I said, my voice cold. "Kevin South didn't get your kitty tonight as he hoped?" Another scream escaped her, but this time it was filled with pomposity, a futile attempt to regain some form of control. It was clear she was losing the battle, and I wasn't going to let her escape with just a few tears. The tension in the room was palpable, and I could feel everything I had built up over the years beginning to crack under the weight of the truth. Brenda knew what she had done, and for the first time, I wasn't backing down. The air in the room grew thick with tension as she covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes wide with shock. "How did you find out?" Her voice wavered, but there was an almost theatrical tone to it, like a game show host trying to maintain composure under pressure. I couldn't help but let out a sharp laugh. "Once again, the inadequacy of your mind is fully on display. Just think for a moment. You work in an office with at least 10 other women. Kevin is the biggest enthusiast anyone's ever seen. Everyone there knows who's sleeping with whom, and they talk about it. You used to do it too." I paused for a moment, letting the words sink in. "So, did you even for a second think you'd be an exception? For over a month now, several of your so-called friends have been telling me how you not only fell for Kevin's tricks, but started looking for him like some sort of conquest. You know, as one of your colleagues put it, who knows? Maybe he dumped her for you." Her face twisted as I continued. "There's no fury in hell and all that. According to the gossip, tonight he was planning to make you his. He even had a room at the Marriott. Apparently, He spends the first night there. After that, it's Motel 6 or a woman's house. Didn't you know this? Her wide eyes told me she was shocked to be portrayed this way, to be revealed as ignorant, gullible, and such an easy catch. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks, and before I could say anything else, she burst into tears. "Oh, Rick, she started, but her voice cracked as the guilt overtook her. I stood there watching her tears fall. It was a mix of disbelief and anger bubbling inside me, but also a strange sense of finality. This was it. This was where we were, and it couldn't be undone. "Sorry, you're right," Brenda said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm such a fool. How can you put up with being married to someone like me?" I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stood there processing her words but knowing the truth in my heart. It was clear we were both done pretending, done with the lies, done with the game we had been playing for so long. "Oh, Brenda, good news," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I don't have to continue this. I don't need to stay married to your dumb, stinking ass. You'll be serviced tomorrow after breakfast. We rented this house and we have 3 more months here. You can extend the lease or use this time to find something better. Whatever you like." She looked at me, her face filled with confusion, but I could see the underlying relief starting to settle in. "Where will you go?" she asked, her voice soft, almost fragile. "Charmaine said I could stay with her until I figure something out. She has a second bedroom she uses as an office. As soon as I file, we'll discuss the terms," I said without hesitation. When I told her I'm filing tomorrow, she outlined her conditions. Good ones. Can't wait to look into them further. I let that hang in the air for a moment, then added, "Everything else we have together will just be split down the middle. You can do whatever you want, and you won't have to put up with a weak-ass husband. I hope Kevin is worth it." I saw her eyes flicker with emotion, but I wasn't about to back down now. She had made her choices, and now it was my turn to make mine. I met some other husbands who had fallen victim to Kevin, also known as Mr. Donos, I continued, the bitterness creeping into my voice. One evening after dinner, he discovered that his car had been... I paused, waiting to see if she would react. She didn't. She just sat there still, processing what I had just said. I knew the truth was hitting her in waves, but it was too late for apologies. Too late for regrets. As I continued recounting the events, I couldn't help but reflect on the sheer absurdity of everything that had transpired. There was a particular story that had stuck with me. The story of one of Kevin's previous victims. His car had been vandalized, windows smashed, paint scratched, and, as he discovered while inspecting the damage, someone had smeared baby poop all over the seats. The wheels were stolen, and I forget what else. But the real shock came after that. While he was still in shock, 3 masked assailants, all dressed in black, approached him without a word. They robbed him, took his wallet, his fake Rolex, and then proceeded to beat him severely. The police were stumped by the situation. Why? They wondered, would robbers go to such lengths, destroying his family heirlooms in the process? But there were no witnesses, and the parking lot cameras were smeared with paint. They had nothing to go on. Meanwhile, his spouse was at home, playing poker with friends. After he recovered, he moved out of state. No one knew where, or frankly, even cared. Brenda, too, had moved out and found an apartment. But when she realized I was happily attached to Charmaine, she left the state as well. I never saw her again. I stayed with Charmaine for a while, but as with all things, time changes everything. We mutually agreed that a fling doesn't necessarily lead to long-term compatibility. So, I moved out and found a townhouse close to work. Over time, I grew older, wiser, and fitter. I developed a strong connection with a fellow gym-goer. One thing led to another, as it often does in such moments, and I found happiness again. But this time, it was with a woman who had real brains in her head and devotion in her heart. A woman who knew what she wanted and didn't play games. And that was the turning point for me. It was a reminder that life doesn't always go according to plan. But if you're open to it, the right person can show up when you least expect it. If you find this story interesting and want to see more touching, tense, but meaningful situations, don't forget to subscribe to our channel today. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this story with your friends and remember to like the video so we can stay motivated to bring you more great and meaningful content. Thank you for watching and supporting us.